Welcome to the Mostly Pod Out Night. Mostly, I am Graveyard, joined by my co-host Salem.
Hello.
This is episode 20 of our weekly All Things Horror podcast. Tonight, we'll be going into our first week of the 13 Slays of Christmas. We'll be going over 13 horror movies that take place around Christmas and just for this month. So, tonight, we will be discussing what we're calling bad Santas in movies. So, we're including Christmas Evil, Krampus, and a Christmas horror story. So we're kind of running the gamut here, newer stuff, older stuff, and we'll go from there. But we'll do our normal recap. And for this week, we are doing number of mall Santas out of 10. So we will kind of be just tag teaming these recaps as we go along. So let's start off with the earliest one in this list, which is Christmas Evil. So, Christmas Evil, how to really explain this? First off, this was kind of the first movie that kicked off the Killer Santa craze that we later come to know in Silent Night, Deadly Night series. This was originally called, I guess, You Better Watch Out or Terror in Toyland, which I don't think makes any sense at all.
The version that I watched actually had the title as Better Watch Out.
Really?
Yeah.
Was that on Shudder?
Yeah. I watched the version on Shudder just because I had it up yesterday.
Yeah.
But, I watched it and it came up like Better Watch Out. I'm like, I guess that was the original name of it because the title is still there.
It's fair. So this came out in 1980, like I said before. So, still kind of early in the slasher genre, realistically speaking. So it's really the second Christmas horror movie, if we count the first one being Black Christmas, which we'll get to around Christmas time. So the movie starts off, it's 1947, which you think about like, oh man, that's really far back at this point in time, right?
Well, it was like normal flashback range for 1980.
Yeah, 33 years.
Yeah, for us, it's extremely far back.
Yeah. So essentially, there's two brothers that are, getting ready for bed. It's Christmas Eve, and they're trying to sneak a peek of Santa, as everyone at that age tended to do. And so they kind of sneak down, and Harry is the main guy that we follow in this. And he, instead of mommy kissing Santa Claus is kissing mommy in a very special area. Nuzzling, yes. And they focus on that for quite some time.
They focus on like her leg and her stocking. They don't actually like show
right. Correct. But surprisingly enough, Harry gets very upset by this and goes upstairs and starts getting pretty angry. He has like this snow globe that he has that's like a Christmas snow globe that he holds on and is dear to his heart. And he kind of goes into the attic and then like smashes the snow globe out of anger at Santa because Santa is molesting his mom as far as he's concerned. And he cuts his hand on it. Just like he's been traumatized already from this point going forward with Christmas. Now, we flash back 33 years later where he's, I don't know, supposed to be 39 or 40. He looks 60.
Yeah, the funny note is that like nowadays when you leave out milk and cookies for Santa, right?
Yeah,
you just like leave out a glass of milk and a plate with like 2 cookies on it, right?
Yeah,
but like back in that flashback in 1947, they went all out, man. They had like a little bowl of water for him to like wash his hands in. And they had like, a whole bunch of cookies. They had like a pitcher full of milk that he had to like pour himself. And then he had like bread, like toast that he was like spreading. I don't know what jelly or I don't know. It looked like something that had like chunks in it. It was probably like, it was 1947. It's probably like some kind of like
maybe
creamed fish or some weird thing. They always had weird stuff like that back then.
Well, okay.
It was totally different. I mean, it just different time frame of like what they left out for Santa back then versus what you leave out for Santa now.
Well, let's briefly touch on that. So we can talk about that because this movie's not very long, first and foremost. But, if it's toast with honey and milk, what does that attract? We all watch American Gods. We know that attracts fairies, fae, folk. or what is it, Leprechaun in her case too, in American Gods. And
yeah,
I would say the idea that Santa Claus is part of the Fey world, so that would almost make sense that there's a sweep there for him too.
Well, I'm just saying, but it was just interesting to see the level of stuff that they leave out versus now versus then.
I mean, I assume the water was for the reindeer because when I was growing up, we used to leave out carrots for the reindeer food. Now there's this like reindeer food, which is just squirrel food that you throw outside.
Really,
but yeah, there's whole new things nowadays. From when we were
I mean, I don't have children, so I don't know a lot of this stuff. I get it from my nieces, but that's about it.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's just I just thought that was interesting. But yeah, I mean, he put his hands in the water and like washed them.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, but that's how they did it back in the in the old days. They would have a bowl of water and they would like wash their hands in it. It's
right.
I mean, it's bizarre to us now because we don't do that, but back then that was a normal thing.
Oh, you still see it in horror movies where there's just a sink for, you have the bedpan, and you have the bowl of water for washing your hands.
Yeah, I mean, it just time frame stuff. It's just interesting to see.
Yeah, and wasting all that milk because there's barely refrigerators in 1947.
Right, yeah.
Ice boxes, most of it.
All right.
So, all right. So we meet Harry, who looks 60, but he's kind of like a low-level manager. Like he works at a toy production plant, and he worked on the assembly line for a number of years, but he was good enough to kind of get promoted to like the lowest tier manager, I would say.
Right.
And, they're talking about, getting time off, working overtime, and he's just kind of a big goofball, I would say.
He's a pushover is what he is.
He is very much a pushover. And, he kind of like, he's talking to a guy. He's like, oh man, I miss working the floor because despite what happened to him, he's still very obsessed with Christmas. Would you think he would have been traumatized to not like Christmas? But,
well, yeah, but I mean, yeah, they show him like waking up and like he's got like Santa Claus, like the whole Santa Claus outfit pajamas.
Yes.
And he's got like Santa Claus shit all over his walls, like to the point where he looks like, it looks like a conspiracy theorist's walls, but it's covered in Santa stuff versus like, conspiracy stuff.
Instead of Pepe Silve.
Yeah, right. But he had like a bunch of like weird dolls and toys and like a dollhouse and stuff. And yeah, it really just felt like he never really left that childhood. Like he tried to like keep his mind in the day before he found out about Santa, and he just wants to live there permanently.
Yeah, I mean, he's shaving. He puts on way too much shaving cream to have the shaving cream beard.
Yeah, and like, to be fair, this is in this time frame in the movie. It's before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So like, there's no reason for him to be all Christmassy yet, especially not in 1980 because they didn't start Christmas stuff until after Thanksgiving.
Right. Oh yeah, and like he tries his worst Santa laugh I've ever heard. It's ha 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 instead of ho ho. I'm like, what? It was weird.
He's trying.
Yeah, but they make fun of him and stuff like that, and he kind of starts spying on like children and adults and like almost like Rear Window-ish type things.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that he didn't just start doing that. I'm pretty sure because he's been doing that for a while. He has
books with the year. Right. And they're one naughty and one nice. So, I mean, these are thick ass books, too.
Right. And he had at least 3 years up there.
Yeah.
Like he had 78, 79, and 80. And they were giant books. That was all that would fit up there. I'm guessing there's probably a lot more in like a box somewhere.
Right. So you can tell even then he's deranged a little bit, right?
Right.
That he's spying on that and he's making naughty and nice lists like, not listening to your parents or saying thank you. That's like naughty.
or like the kid looking at a porno mag, which is weird, right?
Yeah.
Like, why does like an 8-year-old child have a Penthouse magazine? But
in 1980, that's
and they didn't just show the cover. No, he was like cutting out the centerfold. Like they showed the full nudity and everything in it, which I thought was completely unnecessary. But
yes,
I guess trying to make a point, I suppose.
Right. So anyway, he goes back and you see him cut to work, and they're talking about like, I'm going on vacation, like what, the 20th or something like that of December, just to do there. And he's like, hey, Harry, the guy's Frank's like, hey, Harry, I know you missed the assembly line. Do you want to work for me? Great, thanks. And he's just like, yeah, sure, I'll do it, because he's just a pushover, loves making toys. So, I mean, that's fair. But it'd be really weird for his managerial position to do that. But like I said, somehow he's good enough for what he does, or maybe they just didn't want him on the line to just get him out of there, but they couldn't fire him. That's why I took it as, right?
Well, I mean, when he was talking to like the management guy, I mean, this is obviously a little bit later on, but he's talking to the management guy at that party.
Mm-hmm.
The management guy seemed to like him.
Yeah.
So I think that he was promoted because he was good. I think is what it was. Well,
he did his best because he's that passionate about making toys.
Right.
So that I can see that would make sense then. But on his way home, he's like, okay, so he's working, he's doing his shift, and he's pretty happy. And he just kind of just jumps in line, just starts shoving pieces together. And on his way home, he just happens to go past a bar, and he sees Frank there, and he overhears. He's like, through the door and through the window, that he's here. I can't believe it, that I got that smuck to work for me. I'm not leaving for a couple of days, blah, blah, blah. So, Harry gets upset realizing that he's been duped, right? So he kind of just goes home and starts sulking and kind of smashes a figurine he has in the house. Like, he has this creepy ass dollhouse that looks like it's the apartment across the street from him, with like the kids and the adults all as dolls inside of it.
I mean, possibly. Yeah, they don't actually say what they are, but it's creepy regardless.
Yes. Yeah. So, but he starts humming Christmas tunes, right? Can't use the words for the probably rights to the song. And you start to see a little bit of that twitch, the unhingedness that eventually comes out of Harry. And so the next day he's supposed to be going to his next day's Thanksgiving. And
I think he does that creepy thing at that kid's house first.
Oh, where he hides in the bushes?
Yeah.
Not really. Yeah, there's like two bushes, and there's like an entire driveway, and you have the most New Yorker mom.
Yeah. Well, the weird thing was he was like staring through the window, and then for some reason he decided to cover his face and hands in mud.
Yes.
I don't know why, because it was like snowing on the ground, so like it should be frozen, but somehow he found wet mud, and he put it all over his face. No explanation is given as to why. That doesn't make any sense. I was thinking at first maybe like camouflage or something, but yeah, I don't know why. And then it's like this weird, bizarre thing where he was like watching the kid, and then the mom and the kid came outside and they were gonna leave, and then he was like trying to like weirdly grab the kid. I don't know. It was very bizarre. But this was the naughty kid, the kid that was looking at the porno mag that he was doing this to.
Yes,
and then he presses his face and hands up against the side of the house and like makes this weird imprint. But again, and this is never revisited.
No,
there's no explanation as to why this happened or what he was trying to do here. I guess it's just trying to show his descent into madness or something.
Right.
Yeah,
you'd almost say this is like his mark of evil on the house. You'd think.
Yeah, but he only does it this one time, and they do revisit it when he goes by later. They do show it again. And you're like, oh, here it comes. And it absolutely does not pay off at all.
No, this is where the mom starts beating the kid with the belt, right? Very New Yorker.
Yeah, she just slaps him across the face. I was just laughing. I'm like, yeah, this is 1980.
Yeah.
It's still slap kids, and it's okay.
Hey, yo, I'm walking here. Very, very, I mean, this takes place in New York City.
Right.
But, well, maybe because he goes between, like, the suburbs and the city with like a few running sprints, and he's in the city all of a sudden in some of these scenes.
Yeah. I don't know.
So after that, he's supposed to be going to Thanksgiving with his brother. He cancels it because he's, they're both watching like the Macy's Day Thanksgiving parade with Underdog and a couple other characters. And we find out that his brother and his brother's wife, so his sister-in-law, are very concerned for him. Like, he's just odd, right? And his brother's wife's like, you just gotta talk to him. And when they have the phone call, it's really like he's talking him down off a ledge. It feels like.
Obviously they can tell something is very, very wrong.
He's never missed Thanksgiving, and he's always been childish in nature. Let's go with that, right? He's a simpleton. His younger brother, always has to look out for him. Now, does that when he does later that night, does he go to the house and looks at his brother and sister-in-law almost get it on with the kids upstairs?
I don't. Yeah, well, it's around in this time period. Yeah. He hasn't gone Santa yet, so it's around in this time period. But then there's like a kind of like a montage after this point where they just show him like building his Santa gear.
Yes.
From like Thanksgiving to Christmas. And then it just goes Christmas Eve at the bottom, like, and then it's done.
Yep. So so he goes there. We have the montage of him his descent into madness. And then he ends up at just before he dresses up. He has everything made.
Yeah.
He gets some random fur coat, and this is a crucial part. The fuzz, the lining, is brown as opposed to white because he takes it from. Was it from his sister-in-law's jacket?
I don't know. They didn't say where it came from. He was just cutting up a
color.
Fur coat.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was like a grayish with black on it. Yeah, but it was not white as the tradition is.
So he ends up going to the company Christmas party, and he talks to the owner, and he's starting to talk about there's a promotional campaign that this new junior exec or whoever it was is going to donate toys to the children's hospital, and stuff like that. He's like, oh, that's really great. He's excited by that. He wants to help out the kids. And like the new exec goes, well, we really can't make enough toys for all the kids, so only a couple of them will get it. But
did you hear what they were saying on how they were going to donate more toys? Basically, they said everything you make over your daily quota is going to go towards the children. So, like, they're trying to get them to work harder and faster, and telling them that all the toys that go over that quota are going to those kids. And then they say they don't have enough money to donate to buy the toys for the children, so all the employees are going to have to contribute
their own money
to get out
and work. Yeah,
it was horrible. It was just a campaign that the company is not going to spend one dime.
Yep.
And they're just trying to get their production levels high enough, and then they're saying that they're going to give toys to people by making the people donate themselves. And if they don't have enough toys, it's only the employees' fault because they're the ones that have to donate. Like, what a terrible company. A company that makes toys, that uses Santa as their mascot.
Yes.
Is doing that kind of stuff. Yeah, I understand why he gets angry.
Well, like, the owner didn't seem like he was going to be part of that, but this he really came off as a sleazeball, a scumbag, right?
Yeah.
And, it's an executive, a sales exec, but let's face it, that's what they're like sometimes.
Right.
And he gets really upset with the owner because, he's like, starts kind of going off a little bit, like, this is absurd, this isn't right, you guys really don't care about the children. And it's fair.
And the owner guy was like, ha, 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 anyway.
Right.
Like, he did not care at all. Like, he made this big old scene and nobody even looked at him. Nobody cared at all.
Oh, and before he was talking to some other guy, talking about trying to find the right note for his song, which comes in play later, which is really weird, but not pay off well. And
no, it doesn't pay off well. At that moment, I understood what he was talking about.
Yeah.
But later on, he seems to like start twisting it around. I mean,
yes.
I guess, his mind is gone, I guess. But.
Yeah, but I mean, he seemed to be friends with the guy he was talking to, and then the owner of the company just kind of interrupted their conversation and introduced him to sleazebag, and just kind of just another step into that downward spiral.
Well, yeah, the guy that he was talking to was one of the people that was drinking with that dude at the bar.
Yeah.
So he was basically saying, like, I got your tune. Basically saying, like, I know what you're doing. Like, you're using me so that you guys can party and stuff like that. That's what he was talking about.
Okay.
And they were trying to have like they're trying to have like a confrontation about like how big of jerks they are. And then the big boss guy came up and interrupted him. The other guy just walked away.
Right. So essentially after that, he goes into, he does steal some toys. Where's he steal? He goes around a couple houses and steals some toys from the naughty children, does he not?
No, he goes back to the factory and he like turns it back on at night.
And that's when he steals the toys, but he breaks a lot of them.
Well, he breaks a whole lot of them too, because he's mad at the company. But he takes a whole bunch of them as well.
But that's the first time he goes to the factory.
Right.
Yeah. So he fills a bag full of toys and then other bags with, I think, dirt.
Yeah, I don't know.
Something.
They didn't show what it was.
No.
It was like leaking out. It was like dirt or like gunpowder or something. I mean, I don't know what it was, or coal dust, maybe. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know.
Something like that. I don't know. Maybe like the idea of coal. Maybe that's what it was. Who knows? Right.
Right.
So after all that, this is when he starts to really, really twist down and break down, become the rogue Santa.
Right.
So then, he glues on his beard, which is insane.
Well, yeah. And then he's like, yanking on it. And he's like super excited that it won't come off.
Yeah. Because he doesn't want a kid to pull essentially his beard in for it to come off. So he probably used like glue that's not meant to go to the skin.
Most likely.
Because he's that unhinged at this point in time.
Yeah.
And then he starts, like I said, it's a montage of him dressing up and trying to like poke out his belly, and it's like a tunic, essentially, it feels like, or you know what I mean, like a long dress that he kind of wears. He's very
it's old school Santa.
Yes, very much so. Yeah. Very much so. Like, yeah. And then we find out he has like a hey kids, come to my van for candy van.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
That he paints sleighs on the side of.
Yes.
Like, I mean, sleighs that look like they were drawn by like a 6-year-old.
Well, I mean, that's his mindset.
I guess that's true, but.
So yeah, he starts going off there, and like you don't really see him driving, but such an extreme close up of him and his hands on the steering wheel, and he's just muttering to himself and calling like, "On Dasher, on Dancer," and just he is now full mode Santa.
Right.
Then he goes into his driving around. He gets to his brother's house and delivers his toys to his nephews. Great. Right. Nothing wrong with that.
Right.
It
starts off okay. Yeah. And then he goes to the hospital that the company was going to give the toys to. And he gives them like a whole ton of toys. And there's like a weird standoff with like this old curmudgeon-y security guard that I thought was going to go much worse than it did. I thought that was going to be the start of it, but no. Eventually the curmudgeon-y guy, he gives the security guard a present, and then it softens him up, and then all the doctors and nurses come out, and he opens up the van, and the whole van's full of toys, and they all, everybody's all happy.
Everybody get out of here, Santa's here.
Yeah. So, yeah, so it was like this bizarrely like happy thing. Like everybody was so happy. He was so excited and happy that he like made people happy and stuff like that.
Yes.
It was, but it starts off very nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought this is it. This is it. We're going to get going.
Like I said, I thought that security guard was going to be the first to go, but
yeah. Yeah. So he's like, okay, so maybe this isn't the twist yet. Maybe he's doing what's right. Obviously he cares enough about this to do it. But then he starts driving around and he ends up at like the new sleazebag. They talked about at the Christmas party that they have to do this, families in town, they have to go to midnight mass, which is a big thing. I had to do it growing up. I'm sure you probably had to when you were forced to go.
I don't think I ever went to midnight mass. I mean, we did to go to some sort of thing, but we didn't go to the midnight one.
Right. Which was never fun. Sucked. Hated it.
Well, but I can imagine.
Yeah. So yeah, so he starts getting he's out there kind of waiting, and he starts getting made fun of by the people from the mass. A couple workers and the sleaze bag, I believe, is there, and the owner of the company. And then we get like a short little montage of quite a few murders.
Well, yeah. Well, it doesn't really show you that, like, what is actually going on until he drives away. But yeah, he like has these soldiers that he made himself, like out of real metal.
Like he was melting metal down.
Right. And but they have like swords like sticking straight out that are apparently like knives, and he like stabbed it through somebody's head and killed him. And then they show like this, I don't know, it's like a hatchet that was painted.
It is a hatchet.
It was a hatchet painted like a toy.
Yeah.
I mean, it had like little eyeballs and stuff on it, but it just like it was painted. It was just a regular hatchet. And then you see the hatchet go up and come down in like various heads.
Yep.
But they don't, it was like just the back of the head. It doesn't show who it is. And then and then it just shows the van driving away. And then you see there's like 5 dead people.
Yeah. There's enough people that they could have taken him.
Well, yeah, there's 5 dead people, and there was like, I don't know, 40 like people just standing there that had watched this happen.
Yeah. So then after that, people are starting to, news breaking, and, Santa kills, killer Santa loose. And then he goes to just some random Christmas party where they're playing polka music like it's Ohio in 1980, right? And like, hey, Santa's here, and like he's staring in there, and some drunk guys find him and drag him in. Like, oh man, he just came off of a murderous rampage, and there's some blood on his costume and stuff like that.
Right.
And it's like, oh, okay. And then he just starts dancing, just the weirdest dances. Yeah, and like dancing with all the kids, and like dancing like with the women that are trying to dance with the Santa impersonator.
Yeah, it's weird.
It goes on for a very long time.
Yeah, it goes on for way too long.
Yeah. Yeah. And then and then he, everything's dancing. He's like, oh, I gotta go. And like, one more. And they talks to the kids like, you listen to your teachers, you do this, or you'll get presents, or else Santa will be very angry.
Yeah. Right.
And like threatens them, and then go ha, 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 after that.
Right.
To make sure he's good. But nothing actually bad happens, but it's like 15 minutes of the movie.
Right. Yeah, it was just like this big long like dance sequence. I'm like, okay, this is gonna pay off. He's gonna murder all these people. And then he just leaves.
Yep.
Like everybody's still happy and he leaves. I'm like, what was the point of that?
Right.
We already had him being happy. We need to see him murder things now.
Right. He's already unhinged. Let's continue.
Right.
So he gives them presents, right? And so I believe next he goes to Frank, who, tricked him into working for him, and he's clearly very angry with him. And he breaks into his house. And he starts smothering him with the bag of gifts.
Well, okay, he gives the children presents first. He gives them, he puts presents under the tree.
Yeah.
And then he goes in the room and then starts smothering him in his bed with the bag of presents.
Yeah.
Which doesn't work, of course, because why would that work?
Right. It's not very smooth. It's still has stuff in it.
Right. Yeah. And then and then as he's getting up, he picks up like the star off the top of this like miniature Christmas tree.
And slices
he slices his throat open, and it is like the weakest blood like leaking out of a slit throat I've ever seen in my life. It was like 14 drops of blood, and that was it. And then like the mom was like trying to scream, and she couldn't like get the sound out.
Yep.
And there was like this weird scene of like the kids all like smiling and happy because they're seeing Santa Claus. And he's like he's like all happy and smiling and like, waving back at him. And then all of a sudden the mom starts screaming and he runs out of the house.
Yeah. Yeah. So he just kind of drives around the rest of the night knowing who knows what. But eventually he goes back to the factory. And I think that's when he starts breaking all the toys. Right? I believe that's what happens. And he has like this, he breaks all the stuff, and then his sleigh gets stuck in the snow. And And then he's now all of a sudden like downtown New York, like between apartment buildings and alleyways and stuff like that, where there's like all the people like, hey, that's him, that's the murderous Santa that just killed people. It's on the news from the night before. You know, he's still covered kind of in blood, pretty disheveled, dirty guy, just sneaking around there. I'd say that's fair to think that's going to happen. So there's like a showdown, like almost a Jets versus Shark street alley knife fight with the dad, and like and like there's all these onlookers, and like all the kids come and protect him from Santa, protect Santa from their parents,
right?
And he's like freakishly holding on to them. They're willing to like die for Santa. And like the little girl's dad has the switchblade, and like I thought more was to come out of this. He's able to like slash his stomach a little bit. Just slash Harry's
Does
stomach.
He
gets.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't think any
briefly
injuries occurred out of this. Yeah, okay.
And I thought he. Like he's like, leave me alone. And I think he hits the knife and just kind of just throws it away instead of using it. Right. And there's an older woman who uses an earring and stabs him in the cheek with it.
Right. It's bizarre.
And then all of a sudden, torches.
Yeah, like they literally had like pre-made like medieval torches like ready to go like that minute.
Maybe 1980 New York City was like that. I don't know. I wasn't there.
But it was like a piece of wood, and it had like a wire cage around like a t-shirt soaked in kerosene. I mean, it was like an elaborate thing.
Yeah.
And it just like, and he was literally not a block away before they had those things out.
Yes. They're ready. There's a lynch mob and a mob with torches and pitchforks ready to go at all times.
Exactly.
In New York. Like where I live, sure, I can see that happen.
Well, they wouldn't have torches.
No. So he manages to get his sleigh out of the snow, and I believe he goes to his brother's house.
Yep.
And he's like, all right, I found my note.
Yeah, right? The brother is obviously had seen all this stuff on the news, and it was almost positive it was him. And then when he sees him in the Santa suit, then he knows it's him.
Right. And there's this big thing like, I've had to protect you my entire life. I was a younger brother. You should have been protecting me. I'm sick of protecting you. And now you're doing this. Right.
Right.
And then what? His brother tells him he's the one that knew it was his dad, groping their mom this entire time. And so, like, yeah, they're going to have a brotherly stand up. Like, I'm sick of you. I'm taking care of you once and for all. This is why you have to be taken down. And, they start fighting. I think Harry chokes his brother out.
Nothing too bad happens. Like they fight around for a little bit and then he runs away.
Oh no, Harry gets choked out and he gets put into the van,
right,
by his brother. He's like going to take him in, and then he kind of just like wakes up, punches him.
Well, okay, here he put him in the driver's seat of his own van.
Yes,
like I mean, if you're gonna like put him somewhere, why don't you put him in the back of the van? Why don't you put him in your own car? Like
I am up.
Yeah, something.
Right. So then the angry mob finds him, and he's driving off, and the van drives off the bridge. Then all of a sudden, he is flying towards the moon.
Yeah, it's magical Christmas. It's a Christmas miracle.
It is a Christmas miracle. Yes. So yeah, that's pretty much the movie.
And then the end. That's it. There is no ending.
End. Yeah. Where to begin? Yeah, that was the recap. So this was my first time watching this. When I was making this list, I go, have I heard of this before? I don't think I've ever heard of it. And then I was doing the research for the podcast and find out, this is what leads into like the first killer Santa movie that people were upset that this, the panic that occurred in the UK, this was removed from the UK, theaters. because people really didn't like the idea of a killer Santa Claus. Now, it's an R-rated movie. Why are you taking your kids to go see this anyway? I don't get as well.
I mean, to be fair, the UK at that time, like, you couldn't play anything.
Correct.
Yeah, it was a big like scare at that time. Censorship was like through the roof. There's all these banned movies, a big black market for them. It was bizarre time.
Yeah, so I mean, I can tell you right now that honestly, my first watch, it was rough for me. And I do like cheesy movies, obviously. And this was just, it seemed to drag on longer than what the movie actually was.
Well, because, the reason what it was, I had the same thing. I've never seen this movie before, but I had a lot of times, again, whenever I'm watching a movie and I have the urge to like do other things, I know it's not a good movie. And I had the urge a lot of times, but I figured out it's just because the scenes are too long.
Yes.
Like you're trying to get a point across, and like again, there's weird scenes that are just totally out of place that I don't know why they're even there. Like I don't understand in the grand scheme what it's supposed to mean.
Yeah.
But those scenes are long scenes. They're not just like little one-off weird scenes. They're like the scene with him and the mud on his face and the kid is probably like 5 minutes long. It's like a good chunk of time. The time of him at that Christmas party, like you said, it's like 10 minutes long.
Right.
I mean, there's so many like of these extended scenes of like him just like walking or watching or doing. I mean, it's just the scenes go on for too long. And in a movie like this, again, it's coming off as cheesy. Why are you trying to be like, putting like cinematography into this? It doesn't need it. It doesn't need it. You don't need like that kind of shots and stuff. Just bam, 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 get it out the door.
Right.
You don't need to do that.
He doesn't speak for most of the movie at this point in time, once he goes on that path.
Right. And like as far as like murders go, there's really not that many.
6.
Right. But that's it. I mean, it's not like there's multiple scenes where he keeps going like a slasher. It's really only like the one scene, right?
Yeah.
Well, the one scene at the church and then the one guy Frank, in his bed, and that's it.
Yes.
Like you'd expect him to like go on a rampage with other stuff, but he doesn't. There's like no there's no like structure to it.
Right. So yeah, I completely agree. But I mean, this is the first one. I'm sure they're very cautious about doing something like this because it is the cultural icon. And I'm sure there would like just the idea of presenting someone that had been someone going, no, we can't do that. It's Santa.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
I guess
it's possible. So let's get into our highlights of this movie. If you can say there are any highlights of the movie other than it ends. I like what I'm going to go with, and we discussed this briefly before we started recording. And we discussed this and I think other things where, you show that your movie's scarier than other horror movies by having that movie in your movie, right? Or you have the torn up poster, or you have the nod saying, hey, your movie exists, but we're better than it. In this movie, they have Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. And in my mind, that shows it that this is as cheesy and as goofy and as bad as Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. It wasn't, I mean, it's not, Santa Claus Conquers the Martians isn't a horror movie by any stretch of the imagination. But, they paid homage to that. And it just shows that this maybe this is all tongue in cheek. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a very strong possibility that like most of this movie takes place in his head.
Right. I mean, yeah, I guess his descent into madness, you can see some points in there, which we've discussed a lot of descent into madness, obviously, in a lot of our stuff. But I mean, I guess it was okay for that part. What about you? Any highlights for you?
I actually liked his like descent into madness in this movie. That part of the movie was actually really well done.
Yeah.
Like it was, you believe that this guy was cracking. I mean, like, they showed, obviously he's getting pushed around at work, which is, typical Trigger and stuff like that. But
yeah,
the way that they showed him like reacting to those things, like you could see, the veneer starting to break away. And he was like going full on into madness, I mean, when he's making his suit and doing that kind of stuff. And like when he thinks he becomes Santa Claus, I mean, you can see that
that change.
You can see him degenerate into that.
Yeah.
I think that was done really well. Again, a lot of these shots and a lot of these, like, establishing, background things that they're doing were way too long. Yes. I mean, the movie is not short overall, but it feels long at times just because some of these scenes are way longer than they need to.
Right.
Like, they should have cut down on the Christmas party and had a few more, like, murders in there.
Right.
Like, I thought for sure he was going to start murdering kids, right?
Oh, absolutely. The naughty ones?
Yeah, the way that he was, like, creeping on them and, like, he was getting, like, genuinely disturbed when he found that kid, like, looking at the porno mag. Like, he was, like, unhinged about it. Like, he was, like, not happy.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then he went to that kid's house, with the mud on his face, and I was like, okay, something bad's going to happen. And I was like, okay, he's not quite there yet, but now he's there. And he went back in sin. I was like, oh, here it comes. He's going to kill that kid. And he just, like, leaves a bag of dirt on his back porch. He didn't even bring it in the house. Yeah. He leaves it on his back porch, and that's it. And there's like that whole kid subplot is done.
Yeah, and you think that he would mark the houses they're naughty, and that's the idea of the mud on his face and hands. Come back to play doesn't.
No, these things did not deliver at all. It was just completely, useless. I don't understand what was going on there, but again, the highlight is I actually believed that he was cracking. Like, that part was done well. I mean, that the writing and the acting as far as that part goes was good.
Yeah, I mean, everything else seemed to be filler though.
Yeah, and the low point is, like, I don't know what they were doing with a lot of these scenes. they're so long, and they're not doing anything. They're not building the story. They're not changing the character arc. They're not doing anything. It's just like you're like establishing things that have already been established, but you're like showing longer scenes of it. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing of, like, he wanted to become Santa to do good things for kids was shown when he brought all the kids at that, hospital.
Yeah.
All the toys. Done.
For sure.
You don't need another shot like that for the rest of the movie. I don't understand what the whole Christmas party thing was even supposed to do.
Another set point for 1/5 of the movie, I guess.
Right. I mean, again, I don't know. Maybe they were just looking for filler because, they wanted to try to get the 90 minutes and they didn't have enough to get there. But I mean, fill some more murders, man. I mean,
well, he did so many murders. Something. He did so many murders in a row, which in slashers, we have the kills and we have filler between it. They just did the kills and one thing and then the filler the rest of the movie.
Right.
The next 30 minutes.
I mean, again, this is still early, I guess. I maybe they're still figuring out the formula, but again, it just, the timing was way off for a lot of these shots.
The pacing,
it was very odd and bizarre. I will say it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. There was some, like, high points in there that I was not expecting, so I didn't hate it as much as I thought I was going to.
I didn't know much about it. I thought this is the precursor. This is the grandparent of Killer Santa. It was worse than I was expecting it to be, but that's just my thought. But for this month, we are doing. Is this on the naughty or nice list? Is this something you ever would want to watch again? Let's go with that. Is that naughty or nice? I mean, is this well enough to be in the pinnacle of Christmas horror movies?
Okay, well, how about I don't know how to okay, how about it will be on the nice list if it's at a Christmas party in the background and I'm drunk.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, like, I don't hate it. I don't ever want it to, like, it's not something I want to, like, remove from my life completely, but I don't want to, like, sit and watch and focus on this movie. But I think it would be, like, a good background thing, if you're, like, at a gathering, like at a Christmas party gathering and you're drinking. I think it would be a good thing to have on in the background.
I would watch this again if Mystery Science Theater or Riff Tracks did this. I'd love to see them do it. They did Santa Claus Connect the Martian. They've done some horror. This belongs on the naughty list just so they can take it.
Right.
That's. I'd love to see them make fun of it or someone riff it. Quite honestly, there's enough to do it.
It wouldn't take much, but again, they'd be stretching for material. It's 10 minutes of that Christmas party, they'd be like, you'd be, it'd be like a Manos the Hands of Fate situation.
Yes. Without without Torger's song. Which
well, yeah, I'm saying like, yeah, that movie, even watching the MST3K version is painful.
Yes, it is. But yeah, I agree that it's not on my naughty list, but it'd be nice if I was drunk and like, haha, there it is. It's like if I saw Santa Claus Conquer Martian, we'd have a party and you just have bad Christmas movies.
Right.
So, all right. So on that note, we are doing Mall Santas out of 10. For our grading scale for this, I'm gonna have to go ahead and give this 4. Honestly, 4 Mall Santas out of 10. The idea was good. The execution was poor.
Okay.
What about you?
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. So I'll say it has to be a bare minimum 7 for me to rewatch something.
Yes.
So if I'm gonna say I'll rewatch it if it's in the background and I'm drunk, I will take off 2 points off the 7 and I'll put it to a 5.
All right, that's fair enough. All right, do you want to kind of just start taking the lead on our next movie, Krampus, and we'll
Krampus?
just jump in? Yes, Krampus.
Sure.
Right.
Okay, so you got it opens up on the credits are played during like a play where there's like a kid fighting. It's like a reindeer fighting like one of the wise men on stage, I think, or some, I don't know. Yeah, whatever. So they kind of introduce you to like the characters, like the mom, the dad, the sister, and the
almost
brother.
Like Black Friday,
right? Yeah,
so it's like people getting trampled.
Right. Well, that's like they do that Black Friday thing, where everybody's trampling each other, and then they do the school play thing, whatever.
Yeah.
And so then they're going home, and it's like, they show them as they're kind of sort of like a regular-ish family, like a modern regular-ish family, right?
Yeah.
So you got dad, who's Adam Scott, you got the mom, who's Toni Collette, and then you got like a teenage daughter, and then their son, who's
Max,
like 8 or something.
He's probably 10.
I don't know, the writing for his letter. I don't want to call him 10.
He's at the age where it's questionable whether he believes or not.
Right.
Let's go with that.
Right.
Max.
And they got their grandma, who is German, I'm guessing.
Oh, she is very German.
Well, she's speaking another language that I don't know, so I'm assuming it's German by the way it sounds. But yes,
it's German. Yeah,
yeah. So she only speaks in German, and the little boy understands her, and so does the dad. But I don't think anybody else speaks German.
Correct, because it's the dad's mom.
Right. Yeah. So the kid is like trying to do like their traditional Christmas stuff, and because he got in a fight in the play, they're all like, no, we're not doing that. Plus, we got family coming over in a little bit, so you can do it all by yourself. So basically, it's like him and his grandma end up like watching Charlie Brown and eating cookies, right? Like the traditional Christmas stuff, and then everybody else is doing their own thing. Like the daughter is talking to her boyfriend on Skype.
Yes.
Whatever. Yeah, everybody's doing their own thing. So then the family shows up, which is Toni Collette's sister, her husband, and their children. They have 4 children.
Well, they have a boy who doesn't speak. All his entire line in this movie is he burps.
Right.
They have 2 girls that are probably the same age as Max's sister. That are one of them's pretty beefy, like boyish.
Well, they both are. Well, yeah, they're like, because there's kind of like a side thing where like the dad wants them to be boys, so raises them like boys. So they're into like wrestling and sports and
and
stuff like that. Right. Yeah.
And his uncle is David Ketchner. Is that how you say his last name?
Yeah. Something like that.
Pretty known people, and then they come in essentially and like, don't you have another one? Oh shit, we left the baby in the RV.
The baby was left in the Hummer that they came in on.
Yeah.
And then Aunt Dorothy, who's like, the old crotchety, kind of like comic relief type character.
Who made her rounds on ABC in the TGIF days on all those shows.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's Aunt Dorothy. So she shows up too. So they all have like Christmas dinner, and they're all being like, jerks to each other.
Yeah, because the sister, the aunt family is pretty poor. talking about they just have macaroni and cheese for Christmas. And the mom, they make good money, and they make all this, as the aunt says, this, or your sister goes, this is why your aunt makes all these foods you can't pronounce.
Well, again, to be fair, I don't think it was necessarily that they were poor. I mean, I guess it was kind of like assumed that they were not well off. I think they were just trashy people. And that's why that's why they say, well, what do you normally eat? Macaroni and cheese with hot dogs in it, because that's like trashy people food.
Right.
I mean, not to knock it. I like macaroni and cheese with hot dogs. But I mean, I'm just saying, it's to them, it seemed like that was like, a trashy level food, like people that live in trailers and eat that. That's what they mentioned in the thing. Like they were, whatever. So I think there was more of like a battle between the cultures rather than them being
two sisters
poor.
are in two different worlds.
Right.
One married up, one married down.
Right. Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
So everybody's like, a jerk. People are calling out like, oh, the food is, their little chickens are dry, or what. I mean, there's little stuff like that. Aunt Dorothy is like, unhappy with everything. Yeah, she's already started drinking. She comes out with like her creme brulee, and they're basically like fighting over it, because the young boy writes a letter to Santa.
Yes.
And the letter's, like a very nice, like, oh, I want mom and dad to fall in love again. I want, to hang out with my sister like we used to do on Christmas.
And he wants his cousins and uncle to be well off.
He wants them to be well off. He wants the uncle to stop treating his two girls like boys, and stuff like that. So the two girls that are, being treated like boys are obviously kind of like bullies. And they steal the letter and they're reading it out loud, to everybody. And so, of course, like everybody gets kind of upset by hearing all this stuff because, it's supposed to be to Santa. It's not supposed to be read aloud.
Right.
So they get in a big fight, breaking stuff all over the place. He eventually gets his letter back and runs away. But everybody's kind of upset at the time. So he goes into his room and he's like, puts it in the envelope like he's going to send it. And then changes his mind, takes the letter out, tears it up, and then throws it out the window.
Yes.
And then it like mysteriously floats up to the moon.
Right. And then a storm comes.
Winter
has come.
Yeah. And then a storm starts, like a blizzard starts. The daughter, the teenage daughter wants to go visit her boyfriend.
Yeah.
And they say, okay, well, he's you have an hour, you have to go check on him, whatever, and then come right back.
Yep.
And as she leaves, and they notice like later on, like she's not back yet. So they decide to, the dad and the uncle, both decide to go out looking for her. They go out looking for her, and they see like the whole like neighborhood. Well, actually, did the power go out before this?
Yeah.
Okay. So the power went out before, so their power is out. That's why they're very concerned because, they don't have their heat. They don't have, lights and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, blizzard outside. So they decide to go try to find her before it gets worse out. So they go out there, and it's like everything is like super frozen. There's like these giant icicles hanging off of buildings already, even though, storms been going for like, a couple hours at this point.
It's like day after tomorrow winter.
Right. Yeah. And so they go and they find like a snowplow stuck in the road, and they see like the snowplow, like the windshield has been smashed. But it's obviously been smashed in. Yeah, it's been smashed in, not out. But the keys are still in it. The door was open. Nobody's around. And so they're looking around. They kind of, I guess, realize that something nefarious is going on. So of course, the guy with the Hummer opens up, his gun locker. He's got like a shotgun and a handgun. He hands Adam Scott the handgun, and then he's got the shotgun. They get to the boyfriend's house. They go inside. Nobody's there, but they see like a gingerbread man like stabbed to the fridge with a kitchen knife.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, like something weird has happened here because like the door was open and there's like frost and stuff everywhere.
Yep.
So they go back to go get back in their truck, and then their truck has been destroyed. Ripped apart, like on fire, like bad things happen.
He had a name for it too, like Betsy or something like that.
Lucinda,
yes.
Lucinda is the name of the Hummer. They're like, okay, we got to make it back. As they're walking back, they get attacked by some kind of thing that like travels under the snow. You don't get to see it, but you hear it.
It's like a tremor type effect in the snow. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it grabs, I don't know, redneck uncle's leg. And he, basically Adam Scott saves him. He shoots the thing that's biting his leg. And they get back to the house, but his leg is like all messed up. Like it's obviously been like bitten.
Yeah.
So they get to the house and he's like panicking at first, and Adam Scott calms him down, like, hey, there's like kids and stuff here that, chill it out. And so then they're, they bandage him up and they're trying to figure out, what to do. Cause obviously they never find the teenage daughter.
Right. And then there's weird snowmen outside.
Right. Yeah. There's like snowmen outside. There's like weird noises going on all over. They're like, things are happening. So they're basically trying to plan another like expedition.
Yep.
And like as they're planning the expedition, I'm sure what happens first.
Well, was it Mima?
Omi? You're talking about
Omi. That's when she lights the fire.
Well, yeah. Well, I think they already had the fire going at that point.
Well, she says she's doing it to make hot cocoa, but she lights the fire for another reason.
Well, yeah, and she tells people like make sure you keep it hot or whatever.
Yes, don't let the fire die down.
Right.
But I think they kind of all they kind of go to sleep that night.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, I was trying to remember because like a lot of things happen, and I was trying to remember the order of them happening.
Yeah, and then there's the DHL guy comes, drops off more presents, and then presents they didn't. The other presents were there that's not there. It's like, they must have been the boys in brown.
Right, yeah.
So they bring him in. The fire's been going all night.
Yeah, so the fire's been going all night. Yeah, they decide that, they board up the windows and everything because they, they want to try to protect it, and they're, I guess they're going to try to go out and find her in the morning, right? Because it's already dark.
Yeah.
So they decide, okay, yeah, we need to keep watch, because, stuff's going on. We got to make sure that somebody's up to, to watch over everybody. And so it cuts to like later on, everybody's asleep.
Yeah.
And the fire has died down. And then like a little like hook and chain comes down the chimney with like a gingerbread man like tied to it.
Yep.
And so it starts like jingling around. And so the boy, the silent boy, opens his eyes and looks, sees this gingerbread man, walks over, grabs the gingerbread man, and just takes a big bite out of it.
Yep.
As you do, I guess.
Yeah.
So as he does that, then the gingerbread man jumps up, wraps the chain all around him, and then the chain starts yanking him up the chimney.
Yep.
And then Toni Collette wakes up first. She grabs onto his legs, screaming, obviously. And then, he's getting pulled up the chimney, then she's getting pulled up the chimney, and then there's like a big long chain of people like trying to like hold on to them. And then like as that's happening, like I know what else happens to them.
They kick the fire log into the tree.
That's what happened. I was gonna say something else happened. Yeah. So a fire happens. So the Christmas tree's on fire. So like some people are trying to put that out. Some people are trying to like help bring them down. And whatever. So I ended up bringing everybody down. And the kid ends up back in the front room. And then as they like relax a little bit, he gets yanked right up the chimney again, and they lose him.
Yep.
And so then they like the dad, the redneck uncle, decides that he's going to run out there and get him. And so he grabs his shotgun and he opens up the front door, and then there's like a bunch of weird snowmen out there. And there's one snowman that made to look exactly like that kid.
Yeah.
Out there to kind of mock him. So he's like starts screaming and getting angry. And then he starts seeing these like things running between the snowmen. There's like a whole bunch of snowmen.
Yeah, like small creatures.
Right.
Oh, we got to mention that when they're at the boyfriend's house, that looks like the chimney was split open and there's goat hoofs.
Yeah, that's right. The
goat
walking on his back leg.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So so they go back in the house, they close the door, and then they're like arguing over what they should do next. And then the grandma says, Omi says, elves. Like, I don't know how the hell she would know that. Well, I guess her history when she tells that, I guess.
Yeah,
but it's like the only thing she describes. Like, she's not describing any of the other things that are happening, just this one thing.
Right. She clearly knows. It's clearly known that she knows what's going on this entire time because she keeps giving weird looks and like these strange things are occurring. She seems to know what's going on, but not saying anything.
Right.
And then she goes into her story.
Well, they fight the elves first, don't they? Or is that later?
No, that's later.
Okay.
It's after that the elves come out.
Okay. Yeah. So then, then she tells the story about how the same thing happened to her when she was a little girl, and Krampus came and killed her whole family and like everybody in their town except for her, and they left her alive, and she was the only survivor.
They left her like a bell that said Krampus on it,
right?
So she would remember never to be naughty again,
right?
And it's a weird thing because all of a sudden we go into like a weird animated thing, like not shadow puppets, but like cardboard cuts with like the strings, like you got in the new Candyman, I would say.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I mean, just like an interesting, like a stop motion kind of thing. But yeah, it's it was cool. Yeah. I'd say I'd say like spoiler alert. That's probably my highlight. Is I really like that animated thing. It was pretty good. Anyway, so that whole thing happens. They all decide that they're going to try to wait it out.
Yeah, because they don't believe her.
Right.
She's just senile.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, they're just like, whatever. We don't believe this. I think Toni Collette believes her at this point, because she saw something in the chimney. Obviously, she saw something grab him.
Yeah.
So she believes at this point. Adam Scott, I think, believes because it's his grandma, and the little boy believes because that's like his grandma's like his best friend, pretty much. Yeah. But the whole other family does not believe at all.
Right. Their aunt's like, this is a bunch of horse shit. Who wants to learn how to make some peppermint schnapps?
Right. Yeah. So they go to the other room to like, to talk about what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And then the two girls, I don't remember. Stevie is one.
And
Jordan. So Stevie and Jordan, the two girls that are treated like boys. So they decide to go to the bathroom, I guess. So
and they went together. Yeah.
Yeah. And they go upstairs because Aunt Dorothy clogged up the one downstairs.
Clogged up the shitter.
Right, the crap.
All the crap with all that fancy food.
Exactly. So they go to the bathroom. And then they like, or no, their mom was up there rewrapping the presents that had gotten burned in the fire.
Yes.
And then she got called down for the meeting. So then they went back up to go to the bathroom, and then they saw all the packages.
Well, the attic was open.
Right. Well, yeah,
and
but
anyway, they thought they heard.
The
sister.
Right. So then they went up to go check that out, and then, that happens off camera, but apparently all the packages that had been brought in from the front porch, burst out of their, boxes and like attacked her. So like they go upstairs to like figure out what's going on. I believe it's Adam Scott, Toni Collette, and then Linda, the wife, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're downstairs doing that. Howard, who is the redneck uncle, he stays downstairs to like guard all the kids and everybody because he's got the bum leg.
Yeah.
So they go up there. They see like this giant Jack in the Box, like had eaten one of the girls like a snake does. So it's like, like you can see the girl like in its body like a snake does, but it's like its mouth like opens almost like a predator.
Very much like a predator.
Yes. Yeah. So it's like a
Jack in the Box or the vampires from Blade 2.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, it's like that. And so then they go to fight that thing, and then there's like a weird like angel bat doll thing.
Yep.
And then there's like a robot with like blades for arms.
BattleBot.
Right. And then there was something else. Oh, the teddy bear. Yeah, the teddy bear with the huge teeth.
Yes.
So they're all like fighting these things. Like Adam Scott's getting stabbed in the back from the robot. I think Toni Collette's getting held down by the bat thing. And then the Jack in Box.
She was getting strangled. She was getting strangled by the.
Well, eventually, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the Jack in the Box was like trying to make its way through the ventilation shaft, but it was too fat because the child was inside of its body. So it was like trying to do that. So they're fighting these things off, trying to get to them.
Yeah.
Then the bird thing ends up wrapping Christmas lights around Toni Collette's neck, like strings her up and hangs her from the ceiling. And then Linda sees her other daughter still alive, like laying on the floor. So she gets like a surge of energy. So she like grabs this axe and she like
in the attic.
Yeah, in the attic, and then smashes the robot. She smashes the bat doll
Angel,
thing, whatever.
Angel. Yeah.
She cuts Tony Collette down, and then she goes to like chop the Jack in the Box just as the Jack in the Box makes it into the ventilation shaft, but she does manage to save the other child, Stevie, I believe, with the glasses.
Yes. And then meanwhile,
the guy is Howard goes in the kitchen because he hears like noises in there, like giggling and stuff. So he goes in there, and the gingerbread men have a nail gun that they shoot him in the leg a bunch of times, and then he like defends himself with a cutting board. And so he like holds the cutting board up till they run out of ammo, and then he's fighting him, and he shoots something, and it blows up and catches them all on fire. I don't know what he shot, but it takes out.
He shoots the butane torch that was used for the.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I was like, he shot something. I didn't quite catch what it was.
Yeah.
So it explodes and it takes out most of them, but there's still one left. Well, he shoots a couple more, and then the one is going to just about jump on him and get him, and then their dog Rosie comes in and eats it. And saves
good girl.
Yeah.
Then they come down. There's like, you wouldn't believe what just happened. I just got my ass handed to me by a bunch of cookies.
Right. Yeah. So then they're all like, freaking out because bad things have happened. Now their other daughter is gone, like in the ventilation shaft somewhere.
Yeah.
And they're trying to figure out what to do. And then this is when the elves attack, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So the elves
sorry. They said they send the dog up because they boarded everything, so the Jack in the Box can't get out. So they send the dog into the ductwork and somehow goes up in ductwork.
Well, yeah.
And then trying to attack these things. And then the Jack in the Box falls down through the ceiling along with the other toys. And then the window bursts open and the elves come in. Yes.
Yeah, so then the elves come in and then there's like an elf battle.
Yep.
And they lose a few people in the elf battle. I'm trying to remember who all gets taken.
Who was holding
Aunt
the baby.
Dorothy. Yeah, Aunt Dorothy and the baby.
And then Howard jumps onto the Jack in the Box as they're trying to get it out. Trying to get that thing out of the house.
Right. Yeah. So they're all gone. So at this point, it's basically Stevie, the little boy,
Max,
Adam Scott, Tony Collette, and then Linda are the only ones left.
And Omi.
Right.
Yes.
So they all decide that they're going to try to make it to that snow plow because that's the only way that they're going to be able to get out. So they all go to leave, and then Omi decides to stay back and like do a last stand type thing to buy them some time.
Because there's hoof print, there's a clatter on the roof, and the chimney starts to split open just like they saw at the boyfriend's house.
Right. So they go and do that. So they're like going and trying to make it to the snowplow. They make it to the snowplow, but the thing that's under the ground ends up eating everybody.
The adults.
Yeah, it eats Linda, and then it eats Adam Scott, and then Tony Collette gets the two kids into the snowplow, and then she gets taken away. They manage to like start the snowplow, but then the elves pull Stevie out of the window. And then all that's left is Max.
Yes.
And then Krampus like ends up showing up to Max, kind of like giving him like a wink type of thing, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you did all this, we did this for you. And then he hands him the bell.
With his,
right.
With his name on it.
Right. And then they leave.
Which is wrapped in his torn letter. So the wrapping paper was his torn letter.
Right.
Yes.
So basically saying like, you did this. Now our job is done.
Yeah.
And they go to leave. And so they're going to leave. They open up like a portal to hell.
Well, they're going to drag him away, and Max comes back and confronts him. I take my wish back. And he throws a bell. That bell then sinks into the stove, which then opens the portal to hell.
Right, which they just start dropping the adults that are still alive into it. Like, it doesn't faze them at all.
No. Not at all.
And then he says a bunch of things like, like
I take it all back.
I take it all back, like take me instead, like basically everything that you can try to do to like make this thing work, and nothing really changes their mind. And then he drops them into the lava.
Well, there's a point where he's crying and Krampus comes up to him, takes a tear away, and like you look into the just unmoving mask that is Krampus, and you just go, oh, it's gonna be fine. Then they start laughing.
Right.
He picks up and then throws him into the pit.
Right. Yeah, he throws him into the pit, and then he wakes up, and it's like back. It's like Christmas morning. It's like a perfect Christmas morning. Everybody's still alive.
Yep.
And they're all like, happy, like opening up presents, like everything's great. And then he opens up his present, and it's a Krampus bell.
Yeah.
And then one by one, as everybody looks at the bell, you can see like all the memories like flooding back in of like what happened to them.
Like they all seemed like they had this shared bad dream, the nightmare, because that's what Max seemed like.
Right.
And then they realize, oh shit, this isn't a dream.
Right. Yeah. Like bad things happen, and then they pull out and they realize they're inside of a snow globe. Yeah. And the snow globe is in like a, decrepit storage area with a whole lot of other snow
workshop,
globes.
The Krampus's workshop, I would call it.
Right.
Yeah.
The end.
Yes. I've watched this a lot, in case you can't tell.
Well, that's fine. I've seen it twice. This is the second time I've seen it. I saw it when it came out in 2015, and now I watched it again now.
All right, so why don't you go first with your first thoughts or rewatch on this?
First thoughts. It's a fun movie. It's a fun Christmassy, movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's got like the modern twist of like the whole, like Republican Democrat, like kind of schism that usually happens in families in some form or another, right?
You were a Boy Scout, right?
Yeah, but they also it also is kind of nice because they basically like learn to work together at least at some point in time. So like that doesn't really keep them apart for too long. I mean, obviously it's more fun than anything. It's not like they don't try to be serious like at all in this movie.
No,
it's like a fun thing. But I mean, it's interesting. I like the bad things that happen. That like because like the daughter disappears like almost immediately, and she is never found.
Correct.
Like she's just gone. I mean, there's nothing like just done. I mean, nobody ever finds her. So it's not like, and like everybody that disappears is just gone forever. Like they don't, no one ever comes back, which I do like about it. It's like, it's like a bad ending. It's like a long time. It's a long time coming, but it's like, it's just bad things happen. And then there's no like resolution for that bad thing. Correct. It's just, that's it. Bad things happen over.
Yeah. So, I mean, so that's your first thoughts, right? So it's enjoyable enough for you, right? For it being a Christmas horror movie.
Yeah, yeah.
So I saw this when it first came out. I saw it in theaters because it's the same. It's by Michael Dougherty. Is that who did it? It's Michael something. Yeah, Michael Dougherty. All right, and he did first off X2. Superman Returns, Urban Legends, and then Trick or Treat. So, which I love Trick or Treat, right? And I thought, okay, he's doing another kind of like anthology, not anthology, but like another twist of a holiday. I'm like, all right, this is a great trend to come up. And I watch it. I watch it every year since it's come out. This is like, all right, it's the first movie that the wife and I watch. In December. We don't watch Christmas movies, or she does. I don't because I'm a Scrooge. But I would watch this enough. I think it's good enough to on a rewatch yearly for me.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I'm not a fan of Christmas movies. So I don't rewatch like any Christmas movies. I mean, I usually end up watching parts of them anywhere because they're just like everywhere,
Yes.
So like it's impossible to completely avoid them as long as you have a television on and in this month.
Right.
But I don't make a point to watch them. I mean, I will watch some that are like, kind of incidentally Christmas movies like Die Hard.
Right.
just to like say, hey, I watched a Christmas movie. But I mean, as a general rule, like anything that's Christmassy, I usually don't rewatch. I'm not a fan. But this one's pretty good. I mean, it's good enough to where I would rewatch it. I haven't up until this point, but I would.
Yeah, I mean, it's campy. There's a lot of great people in it that we like. That are horror icons.
Right. This is the kind of campy I can get on board with, where it's just a fun movie, right? And they don't go overboard with it. They don't try to go meta with it. No. It's just like, a goofy, ridiculous story done by good actors and actresses that can, not only play the straight man, but also, do the comedic side of things.
Yeah.
Which Adam Scott and Toni Collette are both excellent at.
Oh, yeah. Toni Collette is a horror icon at this point in time.
Well, she can be, but she's also been in a lot of goofy movies. She can also do drama. I mean, she can do just about anything. I've seen her
Was she the mom in Little Miss Sunshine?
Yes.
Yes. See, there you go.
But like I said, she can do just about anything. I mean, I've seen her great in tons of things. But yeah, I mean, they did a great job in this. It's campy, but it's not overdone. I hate the campy that gets meta with it. You know what I mean? Where they try to like be self-aware about it, and that's, to me, you lose me at that point. It just immediately turns bad. But they don't do that in this, and they maintain it. And it's good.
And Adam Scott and Dave Kushner are usually comedic actors, so they bring that comedy side to this movie.
Right. Adam Scott can do drama really well too. I mean, there's been a couple of movies that he's done which are like strictly dramas that he's been excellent in.
Hellraiser 4.
Oh yeah, of course.
No, yeah, you're correct. But he also does the campy goof stuff. Like he did like Evil Son, that was a parody on like The Omen a couple of years ago. I don't know if you watched that.
No, I didn't.
He's done the horror movies because he was in Piranha 3D too.
No, I mean he does. Yeah, he does a lot of stuff. I'm just saying, like he's another, just like Toni Collette, where he can do just about anything, and anything I've seen him do, he's been great at. So
yeah. All right, so let's get into your highlights then. I know you briefly touched on this.
I mean, again, I'll do a couple, but I mean, the one I really like, that little animated short, like kind of in the middle. It was just, fun, but kind of like dark, and it was giving me like Coraline vibes almost.
Well, it was very idea of how you would have animated this, or they would have done it through like shadow puppets or something like that, telling the story in that day and age.
Right.
That's how I felt like it was, and it did it really well.
Yeah, it was good. And also the practical effects for all the monsters and stuff were awesome.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure there was some CGI in there, but I could tell there was a lot of practical effects stuff, and they did a really good job with it. I mean, like
Krampus's horses, his reindeer were just like giant banthas, but like all practical. Like the only thing that was CG really was the gingerbread men.
Right. But yeah, no, I thought it was great. I mean, like the little robot with the blade hands was outstanding looking. I mean, the weird bat angel thing was suitably freaky looking. I mean, the teddy bear with the giant toothy mouth was great. I mean, again, they were all great, fun designs, and I thought that was fantastic. I liked them
for 2015. Not to be that heavy in CG was amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, highlights for me, I rewatched this. I noticed a lot more stuff in this rewatch. And if you rewatch it enough, probably like I have, you'd start to notice things. Right? So, for example, the angel tree topper, right? Uh-huh. They alluded to that because they were fighting over the angel tree topper because the sister got it and she didn't. So there was an angel tree topper enemy. Cookies being made. Doing the old school cookies versus the store bought, alluded to the gingerbread man. The sister had a stuffed teddy bear given to her by her boyfriend. Max had a drawing of a robot on his wall, and that was the robot toy. So maybe I'm overthinking it, but there's hints to all these toys were catered to them for these things.
Oh, okay.
I noticed that for the first time in this watch. I'm like, wait a minute, the robot's on his wall. Wait, the sister had a teddy bear. Oh, they're fighting over the angel tree topper, who got it from mom. Yeah, and I like, the highlights, also the actors, and just it was a good balance of cheese and seriousness and the bad ending. Like, it was, to me, this is what a holiday horror movie should be.
Right.
Yeah. What about low points for you?
Let's see. Low point. I don't know. Aunt Dorothy.
That's fair.
She's mean.
Yeah. Okay. So low point, and that's something I've nitpicked every time I watched it. They hang up the new Christmas picture every year instead of just replacing the one.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a
weird.
That's a whole wall of pictures. Like,
right, but she's looking at the past couple of years and how creepy Santa has been towards her teenage daughter. I'm like, they have like 4 or 5 years of Christmas pictures. I'm like, why would you have that many Christmas pictures up all the time? You have a slot for the Christmas picture, and then the new one goes and takes place of it.
Well, to be fair, she seemed like the kind of decorator that would take decorations down and put them up on the walls according to what time of year it is.
That's fair.
So, I mean, I think she might have just hung that up because it was the Christmas time to do so.
Okay.
I don't think they were up there all the time.
Yeah. But I mean, other than that, low points, there's really not any in my mind. Like,
it's a pretty solid movie all around.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a whole lot of, like I said, there's not like a glaring flaw that I can see.
Other than the little boy. He was, and Stevie and Jordan were annoying, and they were meant to be.
Well, yeah. Again, there's people that I don't like, but you're not supposed to like them. That's
right.
That's the whole point. Like, that you don't like them is exactly what they're going for. Like, that's
right.
What they mean. Like, that whole family was annoying, but again, that's what they're going for. That's
right.
Exactly how you're supposed to feel.
Oh, fun fact: the daughter with the glasses is Max's sister's sister in real life.
Max's sister's sister?
So Max's sister and his cousin with the glasses are sisters in real life.
Oh, okay. All right.
So they surprisingly didn't have them playing sisters because they are in this movie.
Oh, they didn't call for it. I don't know. Well, I guess because the one sister needed to have another sister that was a boy, and the teenage girl seemed not boyish.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. I mean,
that's fair. That's fair. All right. So is this on your naughty or nice list then?
Well, it would be a nice list. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'd rewatch it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Completely agree. All right. So how many mall Santas out of 10 would you give this movie?
Mall Santas out of 10. I'm gonna try to I'm gonna try to localize these to just Christmas movies. I'm gonna try not to rate them against other movies that we've done so far. Like, these December ones are not the same rating scale that the other ones are on. Just the word. So I will say this one on the Christmas rating scale, I will give it an 8.5 mall Santas out of 10.
8.5. I'm doing 10 because this is like I said, I'm a Scrooge. I don't like the feel good Christmas movies that exist out there. I really, really don't. But this is enough of a horror movie and enough that I can get away with just watching my one Christmas movie that I have to watch with the family, or at least the wife. So for me, it's a 10 out of 10 just because of that. I can watch it every year. It doesn't bother me because it's such a bad ending. It makes it perfect for me.
What about Gremlins?
I get sick of Gremlins.
I'm just saying, it takes place on Christmas. It's Christmassy enough.
It is. All right. Yeah. Are you saying that Gremlins is better?
No, I'm just saying these are movies that you can force people to watch as Christmas
That's
movies
fair. Yeah.
that are better than Christmas movies.
Yeah.
Because like I said, as a general rule, I don't like Christmas movies.
Right. But this is definitely above your rewatch, and it's good enough that it's so cheesy that I think it's good enough to watch every year. So I do.
Right.
All right. So rounding up our Bad Santas episode of our 13 Slays of Christmas, we have A Christmas Horror Story. Now, this was only my second time seeing this when we watched it last night. I know this was your first time.
Yeah, this is the first time I watched it.
You probably didn't even know this movie existed.
I did not.
So, what essentially what this movie is, it's a loose anthology movie that has different stories, but they kind of cut between them. So it's not like story. There's connections between everything in it. So there's the wraparound.
Yeah, they do it to make sure that the climaxes for all the stories happen around the same time. So it's not like story with clear beginnings and endings. It's like they interweave them to the point and cut between them so that the climaxes happen at, kind of simultaneously throughout the film.
Right. They're essentially, how many short stories? 1, 2, 3,
it's four, but 2 of them are really 1. So at the end of it, once you really know what's going on, there's 3.
Right. And the rapper.
Well, the rapper is kind of directly related to 1. That's what I mean.
Oh, that's what you mean?
The rapper and the 1 story are like the same story. But no, yeah, you're right. 4. It would be 4. And so instead of 5, it would be 4 because the rapper is technically directly tied to one of them. Yeah.
Correct. So,
and they are extremely loosely tied to each other. Like to the point where, the girl in, I'm not going to name them yet because they haven't described them yet, but I'm saying the girl in story 3 is the girlfriend of the guy from story 1. And that's the only direct thing that they have. The dude from story 2 was the guy that they were watching in the video in story 1.
Yes. So
there's like extremely loose connections between them. Like the family in story 3, the rapper William Shatner is the grandpa of that family.
Correct. And then he works with the guy in the other story.
Right. So again, there's like these very, very loose connections between them. The stories are not related in any way, but there's just like very loose connections between the stories just to show that they all take place in the same world, I guess. Right.
It's kind of like Trick or Treat, which I know you haven't seen, where it's the same town. You have the characters crossed into different stories, but they have their each unique story. So I kind of just want to discuss the stories just a little bit because they're pretty short, let's face it.
Yeah.
We're going to treat this like an anthology movie like we normally would. Without going into huge detail because I said they're short. So essentially, the rapper story is William Shatner is a radio DJ, and he's doing stuff for Christmas, right? So he's on air doing a double shift, playing Christmas songs, which he doesn't play very often. He's drinking some really watery eggnog and I'm assuming whiskey. And he's talking to like this ever-present producer that we never see, and he has a weatherman there that he's trying to get to interject with the weather, and he just puts a sign that says "fuck Christmas" and walks away. So we're kind of listening to his radio show, and let's go into I'd say I'll go into one story, and say it's the haunted school.
Right. Yeah, I'd say haunted school is 1. The cop family is 2. The family in the woods would be 3.
3. Yeah.
And then the Santa one would be 4.
Yeah. Let's do that. So the haunted school, so we see they're high schoolers and they go to a private school and they're doing some project over some haunting. They're trying to get evidence of a haunting at their school. And they're listening to the radio. They're listening to William Shatner radio. And they're waiting for this other girl to show up so they can go into the school and start recording. So they're watching on an iPad something that happened the previous year where there's a cop goes in there and they find a guy essentially crucified with his neck broken, pinned to the wall with a biblical verse painted in blood on the wall. I don't remember exactly what it says, something about the son coming. So
well,
the idea of
something
birth
about
of Jesus.
something about the baby's coming and the child's
Yeah.
a gift or something like that.
Yeah. So, they're going to sneak into the school and do their own capturing news report and try to find evidence of a haunting. So they believe the place to be haunted. While they're waiting, a girlfriend of one of the guys who's the camera guy shows up. We have a little ass groping session unnecessarily.
Yeah.
And then she leaves. So they have the sound guy who has no boom mic. You have a horrible camera guy who's the camera guy, and you have this girl who's who's actually like 18 or 20, but she looks like she's 12.
Yeah, she looks like she's 12, and I'm gonna. Yeah, I'll complain about this a lot, but yeah, she looks, again, I brought this up when we were watching it, but
yes.
She reminds me of like watching a toddler like dressed up in like a sexy outfit for like those bizarre pageants. Yeah, like those weird pageants where they make children like dress up like they're like models or I don't know, whatever the hell it is. That's a feeling I got from her. I just there's like, again, she looks like she's 12, and she's like, there's a couple of scenes where she's trying to like act like sexy, and it is not working. Well, at least It's not working for me.
Correct.
But I was just like, yikes.
And none of them were in jackets, despite heavy snow everywhere.
Yeah, it's heavy snow. It's freezing cold. Yeah, like the two guys don't even have jackets at all. They're wearing like t-shirts.
And she's wearing a skirt.
Yeah, she's wearing a skirt
with like thigh boots.
Right, yeah, with like what do you call them? Go-go boots. And then she's got like socks, like thigh socks.
Yeah,
but that's it. And then she's got a jacket, but it's like it looks like more like a light fashion jacket,
a windbreaker,
not like a warm jacket.
Right. So essentially, they're going to the school and they sneak and they get somehow the key ring, and they thought the principal is going to be there. So they go into the basement of this boarding school that they go to school of. Essentially, I consider boarding school, and they're going around there, recording their evidence, trying to find this evidence of a haunting or figure out what happened there. And essentially, they go down there, they go past, they figure out this used to be like a convent or a school where pregnant teenagers would go to be hidden from society because it was. All that beforehand.
Yeah, what they call it, like a school for unwed mothers or something.
Yeah,
something like that.
So they're going to go to the room where this crime happened a year beforehand. Then you go past, and we were discussing this last time we were watching it, to like the abortion room where there's blood on the table still, which this is an active school, which would never happen.
Right, and the funny, and that room is right next door to the room that the murders happened in.
Well, there was a lot of blood,
and they were cleaned up, but they left the abortion blood all over the operating table. Like, obviously they're doing it for effect, but I'm just like, who's trying to think this out because they failed?
Yes. So they're doing these news reporting, and like I said, the guy with the no boom mic, who's the sound guy, kept hearing things. I'm like, I don't know how he's hearing shit. Like, there's no boom mic, there's no parabolic mic, but he just had the headphones on. Why they couldn't throw the boom mic in? I don't know. That's just a pet peeve.
They probably couldn't afford it. Well, okay, the guy, the camera guy, right? I'm doing quotes for camera guy. He is literally just holding a camcorder.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like his job could have been done by a tripod. Like he wasn't doing any camera work. He was just standing there.
And she has a microphone attached to nothing.
Right, yeah. Which a wired microphone. It had a wire clearly hanging from it that was not plugged in anything at all.
Correct. So it seemed like a really piss poor ghost hunters.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
And they go in the room, they see that the blood's cleaned up. This is where it happened. There's a couple of crucifixes hanging up. Oh, the holes are still here where the nails were because he was nailed to the wall.
Right.
They can start to make out the words on there. And they start to hear spooky noises. And, there's a couple of jump scares where there's like a ghost of someone briefly in the camera.
Yeah. And of course, there's like a bizarre room with like a bunch of weird mannequins and stuff. Like,
right.
Why a school for unwed mothers or a boarding school would need mannequins is beyond me, but they're there.
Well, they're the nativity scene.
Oh, that's right. They did say that.
Yeah. So they realize that they're trying to get out after spooky things start happening. And they realize that this where they're trying to put their key in. The other side's locked, which is a keyhole and a keyhole on the same deadbolt.
Right.
Don't know how that's supposed to work.
Well, I mean, it can work, but it just means you always have to use a key.
Right.
You can't lock it from any side. You have to always use the key to get in or out.
Yeah. So they couldn't, she's like, I tried every key, and there's like, 20 keys in the key ring?
Yeah, she tried 20 keys, and there was 20 keys, and she tried maybe 2.
Right. And I can't get out.
Yeah, none of them work.
Oh, it's getting cold in here. And then so they're all bundled up. Like, I don't know if this helps, but I have food. It's not champagne. And it's like, what? Peppermint sticks?
Yeah, they were candy canes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I was to say how quick they gave up.
Yes.
I mean,
very quickly.
Again, they tried like 2 keys on this giant key ring, then gave
Yes.
up. Then they're like, oh, we can't go out the windows. They're all barred up. Like that.
Yep.
That's it. That was the thing. They're like, okay, well, I guess we'll just stay here then.
Yeah. And then she's like, oh, candy canes. I didn't realize how starving it was. It's been like 2 hours.
Right. It's like, it was evening when you got here. I know you already ate dinner.
Yeah. So a guy was, one of the guys like, oh, I'm supposed to be serving soup at the homeless shelter, right? Which comes into play later in the other stories. And, so they're going to go to sleep because it's sleepy time. They're going to wait, and the rest like school's not going to be open for like another week and a half. So, the girl starts, we have a couple jump scares. The girl starts seeing things. She kind of has like fog surround her, if you will. And she lures the camera guy who has a girlfriend into that room, like saying, hey, let's have some sexy time. He's like, no, I got a girlfriend.
Well,
goes,
okay.
Oh.
To be fair, yeah, I would have been like, no, I'm not into children. Like, please leave me alone.
Right. Yeah.
Like, yeah,
and so,
I would also tell her no.
Right. So, and then it just kind of fades away. And then we see her go to the other guy who clearly has a thing for her, a crush.
Yeah, right.
And then she starts seducing him. And, then they do have sexy time with no foreplay, just dry bone.
Well, and no foreplay, and they don't even bother taking clothes off. It's just like,
right.
Unzip and just go at it. That was it. Like,
yeah. And then,
I don't know how I don't think they understand how uncomfortable that is in real life.
No,
but.
Clearly this person, whoever made that scene, has never done anything. And then she's like, oh, I have a baby in me.
Yeah, which again, babies don't happen that fast. It's like it takes some time to swim up the tubes and stuff. Like,
yes,
it's not immediate.
Correct. And then it kind of realizes that she's been like possessed by the ghost. Because all of a sudden she's like, "Wait, what did you do to me?
Yeah.
What did I do?"
What do you mean? You did it to me? And then that whole plot line was just dropped.
Yep.
Like, okay, like if you truly believed you were like assaulted, you should be more upset than that. You shouldn't just be like, oh, I guess nothing happened. Like, she just like dropped that whole thing. I guess they have a short story here. They have a small window to tell the story. But yeah, like that whole thing was just dropped. Like, why even bring it up? Why bring up that line of thinking and then just drop it immediately? Like, it's more disturbing than, not mentioning it at all.
Fake lore? I don't know.
I guess so.
So it's like, I gotta find the other guy. No, don't do that. And they go into the room. He has like a crucifix shoved into his face.
Right, yeah. He's been murdered.
Yes. And then the ghost of the girl who had an abortion, and she has an aborted baby ghost, shows up, and she's like starts crucifying the other guy to the wall, and she like hands the baby over to the girl and then like touches her stomach, like, you're now pregnant. And then she gets out.
Yeah.
That's the story.
Right. It's yeah. I mean,
right.
We'll discuss it later, but yes, that is the story as it is told. That's correct.
All right. So you want to go into number 2 for us?
I have to do this one. Okay.
You
this one is there's mom and dad, little boy, and they're like in the forest, like cutting down a Christmas tree, right?
Yep.
They're dragging the Christmas tree back. They were all like happy, like, oh, we all love this tree. And then all of a sudden they're like complaining that it's too hard to get the tree back. Somehow the kid gets lost.
Yep.
And then they can't find the kid. They're like running around screaming for the kid. They can't find him, and they go to this like, obviously fake tree with a big hole in it. And all of a sudden their kid comes out of this hole in the tree, and it is extremely obvious from like the outset that there's something wrong with this kid, right? He does not look the same at all.
And he doesn't speak.
Okay, so this kid comes out of the hole in the tree, and it's very obvious there's something wrong with this kid. Like, I mean, even the look on his face is like, this is not, there's something up with this kid, right?
Yeah.
So they take the kid home. Kid continues to act weird. They take the kid home, like they feed him dinner, and he just like keeps eating spaghetti. Like he eats like
shoveling.
Like shoveling in his mouth. Like he's eating like 3 giant bowls of spaghetti. Yes. And then he like his dad sits down to like try to talk to him, and he like stabs his dad in the hand with a fork.
Yep.
And the dad like reacts with like comically over the top violence. I mean, like,
you son of a bitch.
Right. Like he was like gonna punch the kid out. I mean, like immediately. I'm like, okay, this is not a good family unit here. Like something is off. And so he like walks away to cool down, and they send the kid like to his room. And then like, the kid continues to act like weird. Like the, like the kid doesn't talk at all. And just continues to act weird. The mom gets this weird phone call, from this dude. They showed for a second, there was a guy, like a big dude on like a snowmobile that sees them like leave.
Yeah, the tree, the private property that they were on.
Right. Yeah, so like that guy calls her and is like, hey, what happened in the woods? And she describes that like, we got a tree, and he's like, that's not a tree farm. Like you stole my tree. Like, okay, and he's like, well, what all happened? And he's like, oh yeah, we lost our kid, but then we found him. And he's like, oh, you didn't find your kid. Like that's not your kid.
Right.
And she's like, whatever. And she just hangs up. Right.
Yep.
And then the kid like continues to act weird. The kid like sits down and opens up all the presents because it's, Christmas. So he like tears open all the presents, like even presents that weren't his. Like they've been all opened up and all spread all over the house. So the dad again gets comically violent.
Pull out his belt.
Right. Yeah. Like, he's going to like, beat the hell out of this kid with the belt. The mom is like, now obviously this is going to happen. Like, you need to get out of here. Like, you need to get away from us. So he goes in the other room, and he's like, calming down, like realizing he did bad. Right. So he's like, he tries to go talk to the kid to like apologize. And as he like opens the door and he's like talking into the door, like trying to apologize to the kid is like crawling on the ceiling. Yeah. And it like drops down, and then, you hear like a scuffle, but you don't see anything happen. And the mom was like taking like a nap at this time, or maybe she was going to bed. I don't know, because it was nighttime.
Correct.
I'm not entirely sure what happened there. But anyway, so she gets like weirdly molested. I don't know what that scene
It's like
was.
a sex dream.
Right. It's like a sex dream, but it's like obviously the weird kid is like touching her in her sleep. It's bizarre. I don't like it. But yeah, so she wakes up, the kid is obviously not there, but she's like, okay, now I need to walk around the house. So she goes to walk around the house, and then she sees the dad strangled with the belt. His hand has been like chewed off, and he's like, I don't know, like got Christmas lights wrapped around him. I mean, they didn't really explain that. I think it was just
his hand was off.
Right. Yeah. His hand was chewed off. So she like she like grabs a bat and runs in the bathroom, and she calls the guy back, that called her earlier. And he's like, oh, you ready to listen to me now? Like, yeah, that's not your kid. That's a changeling. It's disguising itself to be like a kid. And she looks up on the internet. And of course, now she knows exactly what's going on. Right. The internet has told her everything. So, he's
Google search.
Changeling. Right. Yeah. So he's like, okay, well, you got to be real nice to it. You got to like convince it to come back out to the woods, and then you got to deliver it back here, and we'll get your kid back. And she goes, okay. So she goes outside. She tries to like be nice to it, but she's like obviously like crying and shaking and stuff. So the kid like immediately sees through it, and it runs at her, and she just like clonks it in the head with his bat. I mean, like a hard hit. And then it gets up, runs at her again, clonk. I mean, another
Yeah.
hard hit, and then it's just out. So she packs it in like a duffel bag and
Yep.
then drives back out to the forest.
Yeah.
And yeah, she pulls the kid out of the duffel bag. The kid is now like obviously like some kind of alien looking monster thing. And
Yeah.
then there's a whole bunch of other alien looking monster things in the woods all around it. The creepy dude on the snowmobile comes out and he's like, "Oh, thanks for bringing him back." Like they're hard to keep under control kind of thing. Like obviously, I guess the twist here is that he knew all about the changeling and he's like raising changelings out there or something.
Right. And they listen to him and he keeps them in line.
Right. Yeah. They listen to him and he keeps them in line. I don't know what happened there, but she ends up just shooting him.
Yes. She brought a gun because
Right.
her husband's a cop.
Right. Yeah. But so she brings a gun. I think she asked where her son is, and the guy was like, "I don't know." He's like, "I don't know how to get your kid back. You're gonna have to talk to the changeling thing."
Yeah.
And then she gets upset, and then she shoots the guy. So of course, when she shoots the guy, like the changelings like get all like crazy, and they like jump on him and end up finishing him off. And then at that point, I guess as like a thank you for her shooting that guy, they like bring her kid out of the hole in the tree.
Yeah.
And the kid's like, yeah, like in his underwear. So obviously, like this changeling stole his clothes and pretended to be him.
Correct.
So then that child then comes out of the tree. She grabs the child and then walks away. And that's it.
Yep.
End of story.
Yes. All right. So, so we'll do our highlights and low points of these stories, kind of like what we think the best and worst was. Obviously, like we do for our anthology stuff.
Correct.
All right. So, story number 3 is the girl that was getting groped by the boy from story number 1. When she gets in the car with their parents watching her getting groped, they go off and they're listening to the radio, and who happens to be William Shatner is their grandfather or father. One of, I don't know who. I don't think they exactly say.
Yeah, they don't say if it's maternal or paternal grandfather. They just say grandfather.
Correct. And they're going through areas and go to the dad's aunt's house because he's trying to sell like some product that he's doing, right? Some biofuel or something like that.
Yeah, I think he's trying to get her to invest or something.
Yeah, because she has money. And he realizes, like, I know that, my mom, your sister didn't see eye to eye. We're just here. It's Christmas Eve. We're here to patch things up. And they have the weird guy who's always the weird guy in everything sci-fi and horror, who plays Death and Supernatural, is kind of like the groundskeeper there. And they're just trying to just talk to her, and one of the son looking at this figurine of Krampus. And, they're like, "Oh, you don't know what that is. It's Krampus. He punishes kids who are naughty, blah, blah, blah. He's, the anti-Santa Claus." Right? And so they decided to, talk to her. They go out of the room. The mom, the wife starts drinking out of the decanter that's there. And the son, getting it with the groundskeeper. He's like, "Don't you touch it." It's like, "What's going to happen?" And he drops it on purpose and it breaks.
Right.
So, the aunt's like, "Okay, you have to leave because you broke this." Right. Clearly she thought something was up and just wanted him out of the house as quickly as possible. So they kind of start, driving back, and they see something on the road, right? I'm trying to remember how they get their car stuck in the snowbank that's like a foot away from the road.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they see something run across the road, like something white.
Yeah,
runs across the road, and they swerve to avoid it, and then so barely stuck in the snow, and then of course he slams on the gas immediately to try to get out of it, and of course he gets more stuck.
Correct. Instead of the rocking back and forth or have someone outside pushing, it's not like it was bad out, and they're okay. This isn't working. We have to trek back to the aunt's house.
Right, and so they decide to go back to the aunt's house, but they don't follow the road. They decide to cut through the woods because it's a quicker walk.
Yes.
I mean, these are not genius people here. Like, what do they tell you? If it's cold out and you get stuck somewhere, stay in your car. You're
Yes.
far more likely to get found in the car than you are in the middle of the woods. So, I mean,
Correct.
yeah, these people are not intelligent, and they deserve what happens to them.
Yeah. So yeah, essentially they start going through it and they start hearing weird noises and seeing things. And essentially the son gets taken first, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like a Hellraiser hook blade kind of gets him, wraps him up, and he just gets yanked somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah, so then like, oh shit, something's out here with us. Yeah, we know that. Right. So like, oh, we have to keep going. They try to find like the flare that the sun dropped. They found the flare, they pick it up in the snow, and then like a hook comes out and like slashes the dad's stomach pretty heavily.
Yeah.
And like, oh, we have to leave. I can't make it. There's a church nearby. You guys get to the church. And then like the mom and daughter get to the church, and he manages to keep up, and all of a sudden it's like his guts hanging out, which would have been his guts hanging out. He's able to get there too. And they're like, okay, so they're in the church, and he's like, I think it's, do you think it's Krampus? Do you think it's Krampus coming up? Like, we're in the church. Maybe if we confess our sins, we'll be okay.
Okay. And first of all, what church would be empty on Christmas Eve?
Correct, but have everything lit.
Right, like I'm saying, like this is an obviously used church. If it was an abandoned church, that's one thing. Whatever,
right?
You can't do anything but abandoned church. No, this is an obviously used church.
Yes,
and like no one is there on Christmas Eve. It's like if there's any one day, I would assume that somebody is inside of a church. It would be Christmas.
Yes. Yeah. And so they start confessing. The dad's like, oh, biofuel's a scam. I don't really work anymore. It went under this scientific project, so it changed the world. It's not happening.
Right, yeah. The girl was a kleptomaniac and just stole stupid, meaningless things.
Like a liar.
Yeah, but she stole stuff all the time. And the boy was apparently a serial killer, or at least a budding serial killer. So, like, nobody should feel
wonder
bad.
why we have no animals and why these things...
Yeah, she said she found him the day that their cat disappeared. She found him in the garage with a bag, like
with
like
cat
a garbage bag, and like blood all over his hands. Yeah.
Yes. And the mom's like, I got nothing.
Yeah, I was like, oh, really?
Nothing. So dad essentially bleeds out.
Well, he gets yanked out the window.
Well, there's a lot of blood next to him, but for losing that much blood, he seemed to be okay.
Well, he was alive enough to scream when he got dragged out the window.
Right. And so then they're like, oh shit, there's something here. So they go hide in a confessional booth, thinking that this paper thin fabric mesh is going to stop these claws that are clearly going through windows and doors.
Right.
Man, this one's blanking from my mind. The mom gets taken.
Yeah, the tongue comes under the door.
Oh, it starts licking her.
Yeah, it starts licking her. They get all freaked out, and then she like stabs the tongue, and they pulled back, and then the mom like sacrifices herself so that the daughter can run away.
Right, and
yeah. So she runs into the arms of the monster, and then the daughter runs out the door and makes it to the house.
Yes, and so, she realizes it is Krampus, and she does the mom kill Krampus, or does she kill Krampus? The daughter. No, it's the daughter.
The daughter, yeah. The mom dies in the church. And then the daughter goes and talks to...
Yeah, the aunt's like, oh, you have a cross out here. You knew this thing was coming for us. You want us out of the house to get baited out so it would leave you alone.
Right.
And so she gets, kicked out of the aunt's house. And she's out there, like, by the wood pile. And, like, Krampus is there ready to take her. And then there's, like, gasoline that she throws it on Krampus. And the liar that she's a klepto and stole, she uses to light Krampus on fire. And we see him essentially burn. And then she goes back to the aunt and is like, hey, I killed Krampus. It's all over. And then she transforms into Krampus. Krampus was the groundskeeper.
Right.
And then
now it's the grandma.
Yeah.
End of story.
Yep. End of story. Yep. So we have our first tie. We'll talk. We can do a brief overview of the ties that are there at the end of this. So we have essentially one last story.
Yeah.
So I figure you like this one the best, so I wanted to.
All right. Yeah. So, it's like actual for real Santa Claus, who is dressed like in a like Viking-esque outfit, I would say.
Yes.
He has like leather like bracers on his arms. He's wearing like a leather like vest with like a Viking inspired tunic underneath. He's got like a belt that's got like 3 big buckles on it, like almost like kind of like an armor belt. But he's very obviously Santa. He does have some braids in his hair, so like I said, he's like a Viking Santa, but he is acting just like jolly Saint Nick, right?
Yeah.
So like he's hanging out with the elves. They're discussing like toy production and blah blah stuff like that. And then Mrs. Claus comes in with a plate full of cookies. All the elves are all excited because they all love cookies, so they all eat cookies.
This will give you fuel for your trip,
right? Yeah. So then the one elf was Shiny.
Shiny.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want any cookies. I'm not hungry. And they're all like, what do you mean you don't want cookies? Like, you always want cookies. Cookies are your favorite. You have to eat cookies. And he's like, I don't want any cookies. And they're like,
I don't want your fucking cookies.
Yeah, I don't eat the cookies. I don't want your fucking cookies. In his really high pitched elf voice. And so then he stabs his own hand.
Yep.
With the whatever knife he was working on the toy with. He stabs his own hand and he starts like freaking
bleeding
out
bleeding over the other elves.
Right. And he's like bleeding all over the elves, and then he like becomes like kind of like a.
Well, he dies, and they're like, elves can't die.
Right. And they're like, well, he's dead. And then like, that's at the point where it cuts. And then when it comes back, like Santa is like full on fighting an invasion of zombie elves.
Correct.
Like Shiny comes back as a zombie, and then all the other elves that were in that room were all like zombies. So he's like fighting them and killing them and with his like blade staff that he like rubs against the fireplace, and it instantly becomes like a bladed weapon. So yeah, he's killing all of these elves, like fighting it, like it's kind of a last stand type of thing.
Yeah.
And he kills all the elves and stuff, and then he goes in like the storage room, and he ends up having to kill his wife because his wife is also like infected. So he kills his wife, and then he goes out with the reindeer like stalls. The reindeer are okay, but like the door of that thing breaks down, and it's Krampus.
Yes.
And then they have like a showdown with Krampus, so they're like doing like all these fight moves, like going back and forth and stuff. I think he like chops off his horn, and they're fighting back and forth, and then all of a sudden, like Krampus is what does he say? Like, why are you trying to hurt me, or don't hurt me, or something?
Yeah.
And then he kind of like starts snapping out of it, and like little pieces of reality start coming back in, and you see that it's Storm and Norman, who is the weatherman that William Shatner was trying to talk to earlier. So he had gone to this like mall toy giveaway thing, and that he at some point apparently had a psychotic break and thought he was Santa and started murdering people in this mall area.
Right, because he thought those were his elves.
Right.
That he was murdering, but it was people.
Right. So yeah, he's starting to have flashbacks of like him murdering like shop workers and stuff, thinking they were elves.
Yes.
And then this guy that he thinks is Krampus was just a guy, in a like a Walmart vest with like Rudolph horns on.
Yes.
So he basically realizes that, okay, like, I'm breaking with reality. They have a flashback of him like in the bathroom, like just screaming at himself in the mirror. And then he like, whatever, has a psychotic break. He can't like let go of it. And so the police like, barge in and shoot him dead.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yeah. So let's talk about how these all kind of tie together, right? So you have William Shatner is the father of one of the families.
Right.
And that were stupid with Krampus.
Mm-hmm.
right? The daughter was the girlfriend of the video guy in the haunted school.
Right.
The cop that was on the scene in the iPad from the haunted school was the dad of the changeling.
Right.
And then clearly Storm and Norman was the weatherman from William Shatner's show.
Right.
Yep. So, I know this is the first time you watched it. What was your thought last night?
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, besides me like not liking the weird toddler and tiara girl that was like looking like she was 12. But like when I was watching this, it's pretty obvious to me that 3 of the 4 stories were not Christmas stories. They were just loosely tied in to a Christmas to make them part of this. My honest belief is that this started off as a anthology that had nothing to do with Christmas. Okay. Right. And like 3 of the 4 parts, again, very, very loose ties to Christmas. The one with the haunting with the, aborted fetus and all that stuff. The only thing tying that to Christmas was that murder happened on Christmas Eve.
Correct.
There's no Christmas decorations. There's nothing. There's nothing. There's no ties to Christmas at all. Other than it being the excuse as to why the mannequins were down in that storage room, right? Because they were from the nativity.
And why no one's going to come find them because it was Christmas break.
Right. That was it. Those are the very, very loose ties. Nothing to do with the actual like Christmas Correct. Theme or no Christmas part of the story. Nothing. It was just very incidental side stuff.
Yes.
The changeling thing, right? I mean, They were looking for a Christmas tree. He opened up presents underneath the tree. These are the only things tying it to being a Christmas story. These could have easily been anything else. Again, this wasn't a Christmas story at all. Yes. I truly believe that the Krampus story was a werewolf story because it really reminds me of a werewolf story. It's like the tropes are exactly like a werewolf story.
Only something runs in front of the car.
Right.
They get off the side of the road.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's literally like every other werewolf movie you've ever seen is like exactly like that. I think that was a werewolf story. The only one that's actually a Christmas story is that last one of like Santa fighting the elves, which turns out to be a guy that cracks because he hates Christmas and is forced to do Christmas things and somehow has a psychotic break and thinks he's Santa and starts killing people. That one does have strong Christmas ties, and I really believe that one was originally written as a Christmas type story. Yeah. But I don't think that the other 3 were. I think that they were stories from somewhere else, maybe even another anthology, whatever it was. I just don't think they're Christmas stories. That was the one thing that was really like I'm saying, like, what is Christmassy about this story? When I was watching these, I'm like, okay, the one with Krampus, like, other than they say Krampus, there's nothing else. Like, there's nothing else, like, actually tying this into Christmas.
It's fair. That's fair. Yeah, like, this might have been the second time I saw this, was on this rewatch. My first thought, I completely agree with your comment. I didn't really pay much attention to it the first time I watched it because it really wasn't that interesting to me the first time. It's just something that popped up on like Netflix one year, a couple of years ago. Huh. And, the wife really likes Christmas and she does like horror and she likes Christmas horror. She's like, oh, this has to be good, right? She likes it. Not knocking for it, but I'm like, usually if she's going to watch it, I go, you can go ahead and watch this without me. Like, we watch Krampus. I'm good for the season.
We got to watch Die Hard and Gremlins, man.
We do watch Gremlins. But she likes Gremlins 2 more than 1.
Ugh. Well, Gremlins 2 doesn't take place on Christmas, does it?
It's President's Day.
Yeah, not Christmas.
Correct. So, I mean, that was my first thought. I agree with your first thoughts, too. This is clearly not on my rewatch list.
Well, that's the thing is that 4th one is a good story. Like,
Yes.
I want to just cut that out. Like, I'll put that story in the rotation. But again, it because that story kind of cuts around a bit. Like, it fits into the anthology because it cuts into other versions of it. And then when you come back to this story, it's further along. The other ones don't do that, but this one does.
Yeah. I mean, this is a weird cut movie because usually anthology you have story,
Right.
and not like we were discussing. It's just they kind of go and do the let's call them the acts of the movie at the same time frame, right? So when it's the climax, act, the climax and the final battle or whatever it is, Act 3, they all occur about the same time when they're cut to it. Then they eventually the story's done. Then we get the climax of the next one. So it's like Act 1 of all 4, Act 2 of all 4 in kind of that order.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the only time they usually do anthologies like this is where like at the end they all somehow kind of meet up in some way.
Right.
And that's why they have to do them all at the same time. But yeah, if they're completely separate stories like this, yeah, they usually do not do it this way.
Right. So highlights for me is definitely I agree with you is essentially the descent into madness that Storm and Norman had. You know what I mean? Like, I know changeling stories enough. We know haunted stuff enough. This doesn't really do anything new to the tropes that we see in any of their creatures, I would say.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
It doesn't add anything new to, the werewolf story, essentially, the changeling story, or the ghost hunter story. Nothing new, other than some awkwardness that exists, like over the top characters.
Right. No, I mean, I was okay. So, in order, I would like them. Like the Santa one is obviously number 1.
Yes.
Number 2 is the Krampus one. Even though I truly believe it was a werewolf story originally, it's still pretty well done. I mean, it's fun enough to watch. Like, I don't like dislike it. And then it would be the ghost story one. It's just, I mean, again, so much of it revolves around you, like, I guess finding her attractive, which I don't. Because there's like 2 major events that like you have to like buy that she's attractive, and I just don't buy that. So, that doesn't work for me. And then the changeling one to me was just boring. I mean, the things that would have been interesting to see are done off screen.
Yes.
And it's like, that's just, I mean, the only interesting thing that happens is she shoots the guy, which I didn't expect her to do, which was interesting. Right. But the whole rest of it was pretty boring.
Yes. And, maybe it's because we're getting older that we don't appreciate what we would not appreciate, but find that girl attractive. Like, if we were teenagers when it came out, sure.
Maybe, I guess, I don't know. It just looks like a child.
Yes. So yeah. So what about, low points for me is just, I don't like that format they did. Personally. Act 1. And it just didn't really pay off in the end. Like, they tried hard with, like, the rapper tying into things. And we discussed this a lot in VHS.
Right.
And, there's been some instances in VHS where the rapper does integrate into one of the stories. I don't think it did it well enough for an anthology movie.
No, I mean, the rapper didn't really tie into anything else other than like having a coincidental, like the weatherman who didn't talk is the guy that like, got into the fighter or like the breakdown, whatever.
Yeah.
But again, like that weatherman doesn't talk and is not really involved. He makes a very, very passing appearance, when he writes, fuck Christmas on a notepad. And that's it. That's it. That's the only tie that you get to it. But yeah, technically it is the same story.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. So I mean, is that your low point? What's your low point?
Well, yeah, high point would be the Santa story, because it's just, fun all around story. Both ends of that, the one where he is just Santa, a Viking Santa fighting elves, I think is just fun. And, but it was short enough not to overstay its welcome. It was campy, but it wasn't meta cheesy, right? It was, but again, it didn't overstay its welcome. If it would have been a full length movie like that, it would have sucked. I bet it would have sucked. But, just the small little piece that we got was great. And then the other part of it where you realize that it's, it's some guy just having, a psychotic break that is just seeing that stuff in his mind is also great. Right.
Yeah.
Both parts of that are good. So that whole little act is great. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's tied between just how boring Changeling one itself is, and how the only interesting parts happen off screen. I think the best part of it is when she hits the kid in the face with a bat.
Yes.
But even that is kind of subdued, and they didn't really show it as well as they could have. Whatever. I just didn't really like it that much. And then the second one again is the story is just not all that interesting. But I have a ghost of a girl that died, trying to give herself an abortion or whatever. And that's, great, spooky ghost or whatever. But just the way that it manifests and the way that it ends is just goofy. And the part of it that a lot of it, plays off of, you have to find the girl attractive, which again, I've said enough times, I do not.
Right. So do you, okay. So this is kind of a thing that now, it just happened to work out with Christmas Evil, because I don't think I knew enough about Christmas Evil, but I knew there was a Krampus story and compared to a Krampus story. And then we also then have a Descent to Madness Santa and a Descent to Madness Santa in two different movies as well on this list. So do you think Christmas Evil was a better descent into madness, or do you like the short story of Storm and Norman better?
I think the short story did it better. I think maybe just because it was a more modern take on it, but it was a very, very limited thing. I think the Christmas Evil did the better overall story because they kind of showed more of that descent, as the why. So we're with the Storm and Norman, we don't get the why. We just get he doesn't like Christmas. We don't know why. He just doesn't like Christmas. And apparently he doesn't like it enough where he had, broke his mind.
Right.
But yeah, Christmas Evil, you get a longer drawn out thing. So if you had Christmas Evil, but tied in with that short story, I think we would have had a great movie in there.
Yeah.
If we mix the two, take out the Christmas party and all those long extended shots and just put in Santa fighting elves in those places, I think we would have had a great movie. I think you mash those two together and I think we would have had a great movie.
Yes. And obviously Krampus was a better Krampus story. I don't think you're going to get a better Krampus story, quite honestly, in the movie. That's a full-length movie.
Krampus has yet to have a personality, so you could have one where he actually talks or something.
Yeah, I guess. I
mean, there's room to improve. I'd say Krampus is great. I don't know if they're gonna be able to improve on it. I'm just saying, Krampus is just a monster that doesn't talk. It's just a MacGuffin that kills things.
Yeah, it's the Anti-Claus,
right? Yeah. So I mean, I get that. I mean, again, he's scary in Krampus, right? I mean, he's intimidating enough to be scary, but his toys do most of the work.
Yeah.
So you could have I think you could have a good Krampus movie in there. Again, do I think it'll be made? Probably not, because anybody that's going to make a good horror movie is probably not going to make a Krampus horror movie.
Goodness, there's other Krampus movies out there.
I'm sure there is.
And I've tried watching them. And I go, it's because of the 2015 Krampus that came out.
Oh,
quite honestly,
yeah. Well, anything that comes out that's moderately successful, there's going to have junk versions of it.
Yeah.
I like to call them the dollar store versions of it.
Very much dollar store versions of Krampus. Mm-hmm. I think one's marketed as Krampus too.
Huh.
So. All right. So, naughty or nice list as a whole. If you had to put it on the naughty nice list,
as a whole, it would be on the naughty list. Just because there's a lot of this. I don't know if it's just those two are bad enough to where they feel like they take up more of the movie. I think it's just because I don't like them, so they feel longer. They're probably all the same length. But yeah, I feel like those ones are longer, and there's just not enough going on. They're not interesting, and they're definitely not Christmas stories. Again, I'm going to stress that. So, like, even as a Christmas horror story, yes, no, like, this is definitely on the naughty list overall.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, we can see what good anthologies look like, and we can see what bad anthologies look like. And this is an example of a bad overall anthology, just like VHS Viral.
Right. Yeah.
This is on. I wouldn't say it. I don't know. Do you think it's worse than VHS Viral or on the same level?
I think it's on the same level, but again, it has one good thing and three bad things, and Viral just had all bad things.
Bad things, so it's slightly above it.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, Viral had like nothing going for it. I mean, the only one that was even interesting and the Viral one was the goofy magician's cape. But I think that the crazy or the Viking Santa is better than the cape that eats people.
Oh, absolutely.
So I would have to say overall, I would have to give it to this Christmas Horror Story.
Yeah. All right. So let's go into our number of mall Santas out of 10 on this one. Because I'm torn because I've added to the list. It's good enough for the wife to rewatch it, but it's not good enough for me necessarily rewatch it. But because of the Viking Santa, it's going to have to go into 7 just because of rewatch it for that. What about you? Mall Santas out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, since I have to do it overall, I'm going to have to give it a 4 Mall Santas out of 10. Just because I really don't like the two. I don't like the ghost story, and I don't like the Changeling one. The Krampus one is passable. Like I said, that one was decent, and the other one is good. So, but I'd say overall, those things like weigh it down. It's the albatross around Santa's neck.
That's fair. Yeah.
Again, you give me a cut version of just that, Santa and the William Shatner part, and that's good. I'll watch that. But
you know what? I'm lowering it down to
so here's what we do, right? We make a short film where we take, because like I said, this story jumps around a bit. So it's like, Santa like discovers that the elves are bad, and then it cuts to the other story, and then when it comes back, like time has passed in that world, and he's been like fighting the elves, right? So like basically when we do these in between the time jumps, that's when we put in the rappers with William Shatner talking.
There you go.
Okay. So it's like, we start off with Shatner, like how it normally goes. Then we cut in with the Santa. Then we go back to Shatner. Then we come back to Santa. Then Shatner. Then Santa. And then we go back and forth until it ends. Because again, they are tied together. And I think that if you put that in the middle, it'll kind of ease that time jump a little easier than if you just smashed all of it together like that.
Right.
So I think if we do that, we need to find somebody that has editing tools and abilities.
Yes.
To cut that together. and then that'll be on my rewatch list. I'll watch that. I'll watch Krampus and then that.
You know what? That would actually work because you could almost say that him driving more insane is him listening to his boss who's in love with Christmas. So that's causing the bigger insanity increases in him.
It's possible. But I'm saying
I'm saying that it makes sense that we'd have to cut because he's listening to that radio and hearing Shatner still discussing Christmas, so he's still kind of in that mindset. That makes sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, we get somebody to cut that together, and then I'll be like, okay. Now this is good. I like this.
Yes. Now, the question we'll have to answer is this worse than Creepshow 3?
I honestly don't think I've ever watched Creepshow 3.
Obviously, it's not as good as Creepshow 1 and 2. We know that.
From the way you're describing it, I'm assuming yes.
Yeah, it's not good. It killed it. So, All right. Well, I think that just about wraps up our first episode into our 13 Slays of Christmas. As we'll discuss other movies that are just for fun, briefly Christmas oriented. We just, alluded to them a little bit. There's a few bit more out there that you can arguably are Christmas movies. But, so saying that, so for next time, stay tuned for next episode. We continue our 13 Slays of Christmas, and we'll be discussing inanimate objects come to life, and we'll be including Jack Frost 1, not the Michael Keaton one, but Jack Frost Killer Snowman, Jack Frost 2, Gingerbread Man, and our newest one on this list, The Killing Tree. So
I would probably not even bother giving a spoiler warning for that one. I'm pretty sure anybody who watches it knows what they're into anyway. So
it's probably very accurate. Yes, I know I'm getting into it. You know what you're getting into because you watched the trailer for it. Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, saying all that, this has been Graveyard saying, "Have you checked on the children?"
This is Salem saying, "Long live the new flesh."
Good night.